Welcome into the Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner and Joey Wagner. We're live at an Airbnb, parts unknown, in Indianapolis. And Joey Wagner filling in for Derek Piper. Get well, Derek, dealing with a little bit of a bug right now. So our boy couldn't make it, which is too bad because we want to hit up Kilroy soon and have a good time here. But we are here for you, the people, after an Illinois 106-94 win over Iowa. What a shootout in the second round of the Big Ten tournament. Potential end for Fran McCaffery and potential fitting end for Fran McCaffery. He gets ejected in this one. Iowa puts up a bunch of points. Peyton Sanford, 30 points. Josh Dix, 21. It was a different story than what happened a couple weeks ago when Illinois held Iowa to 61. But Iowa had no answer for Illinois' offense, Joey. 106 points in this one. Kylan Boswell, 24 points for his career high, along with 7 assists, which is a huge number, obviously. Will Riley, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Tre White, 22 points, 5 rebounds. And Tomislav Ivisic, he was my star of the game. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Jokic-like for Ivisic. But obviously, nice win for Illinois. Defense was ugly. Transition defense was a little bit ugly. But, Joey, your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, it was really business-like. We expected Illinois to win this game. We thought maybe their defense would be a little bit better. Iowa made some really tough shots too. And at some point you kind of knew water was going to find its level with the way they were making those shots. But this is another game. Like we're starting to get further away from what we had kind of gotten used to seeing for them over the course of a month. It's another game of body work. Like, okay, this might be the kind of the thing that they envisioned. I don't want to say the full experience at this point right now, but this is kind of what they had in mind when they built this team. 5 facilitators, their starting 5 who can pass the thing around and create options for others. Tomislav Ivisic was awesome at that tonight, as you mentioned, Jeremy. 3 guys with at least 5 assists. Thought that's really meaningful. I thought Tre White facilitated at times. Business-like, the offense was there that we knew they were capable of, and really sets up for the interesting one. I know we're going to get into that for tomorrow's game against Maryland, but kind of as expected a little bit, maybe short of probably hoping they'd have better defense.
Yeah, it's amazing how this offense has kind of evolved here recently, Joey. And I want to get into the leadership of Kylan Boswell, but Kasper Siakis, we hadn't seen a game like this for him at Wisconsin. Like he's had some struggles here, shooting the ball, whatever, but he just 6 turnovers. Some of them were really ugly, and really got out of it. His head was just swimming in this one. He was really rushing. Even Kylan Boswell said what I was thinking, in that KJ was overthinking in this one. It really hurt his team because outside of points off turnovers, Iowa was really struggling here to stay in the game. And it felt like Illinois could have blown Iowa out of this one if it weren't for allowing so many points off turnovers. I think they had 17 points off turnovers in this game, and 6 of Illinois' 10 turnovers were from Kasper Siakis. But even though he is struggling, Will Riley is playmaking, is a guy that with the ball in his hands. Kylan Boswell is playmaking, right? Him and Tomislav Ivisic kind of in that 2-man game. But Tomislav Ivisic is the key to all of this, right? He's the one who connects everything in this offense, being able to stretch you out not only as a shooter, hitting 3 of 5 threes today, but also as a passer. And the cutting from Tre White, Will Riley, Kylan Boswell, those guys are getting so many easy looks. And Tomislav's, making some great passes with those. It's easier to do when you're 7 foot. But I joked with Tomislav and Brad, like it's kind of Jokic-like. Obviously, Nikola Jokic might be the best player in the world, but that kind of element, Tomislav is really brought, and it's really unlocked a lot of easy buckets for Illinois. Remember how hard it was for them to get easy buckets outside of just chucking up a bunch of threes? They're getting so many looks at the rim, in part because Tomislav's stretching them out, and Iowa doesn't have the length, doesn't have the athleticism to stop Will Riley, Kylan Boswell, or Tre White at the rim.
Yeah, and really, beyond Iowa, that's just a lot to ask of teams to stop those 3 guys on the perimeter or the wing, however you want to look at it. When I hate going back to February so much, but we just have this very clear picture of what it's like when Tomislav isn't playing or isn't practicing or not 100%, and offense got stagnant. There's just bad 3-pointers being taken, and now you're seeing this really unlock Will Riley more. I mean, what he's doing right now is really, really impressive for an 18-year-old kid at this stage and being as impactful as he's been. But Tre White, I mean, I think his kind of reemergence here goes hand in hand with having Tomislav and Ivisic out there and being able to just, I said, do you just cut? And like you're going to get the ball? I said, yes. He's like, and as you mentioned, he said, you 7-1, it helps see over everything. But him and Will Riley said the same thing. Just cut to the rim and he is going to find you. And it helps that he can shoot the three and he pulls his defender out of the paint. That's probably going to be a key in tomorrow's game, Jeremy. But we kind of rolled our eyes a little bit in February, didn't we? Where it's like, and you'd hear Brad as very similar post-game pressers every time. Tommy does so much. Tommy does so much. And you're like, wait a minute, didn't you say KJ does so much? And like when you see it now, it's like, you know what? Yeah. I understand. I mean, you understood it then, but you have such clear pictures on both sides with and without him. And with him, this offense can really go.
Yeah, there's just right now, like Will Riley's Illinois' best playmaker. Kylan stepped his game up. Tre White stepped his game up. I'm running kind of the numbers right now, but you could still make the case that Tomislav Ivisic, with KJ struggling, is the most valuable player on this team just because of what he does offensively. Then he's able to get 10 of the 41 rebounds Illinois had. At one point, I looked at you. Illinois was up on the glass 24-8, and I said, "Is this right?
Yeah.
Like, is this right?" So they were dominating the glass, getting some extra possessions that way. Merez Johnson Jr.'s return certainly helped that, but there's a connectedness, and it feels like everyone's kind of settling into their roles. And Tommy being that guy, like he's just everything they do offensively and defensively centers around him.
It does, and again, like you kind of got tired of hearing it so much when he was out, but it's what a stretch five does. And with this offense, not only is he a stretch, but his ability to facilitate, we'll see. Like we'll see tomorrow, is Derek Queen or Julian Reese is going to presumably one of those two are going to be out of the paint. That'll open it for Will Riley, for Kylan Boswell, for Tre White to cut. And he really is the connector to all of this, Tomislav Ivisic, and he's playing at a pretty good level right now. And hate to sound like mid-February Brad Underwood, but practicing, getting out there, building that connectivity, that cohesiveness with those guys, that's impressive.
All right, last 5 games from these guys. Tre White, 18.2 points, Joey. Kylan Boswell, 16.6. I asked Brad about those guys and their leadership and their reemergence, their impact, and he said it's changed the course of our season. Those veterans are finally really stepping up and giving you what you want. There were a couple Kylan threes in that second half. I was like, I don't know if you want to shoot them, but he hit 4 of 7 tonight. You could see a confidence in him, confidence in who he is as a leader of this team, a confidence in his ability to score, finishing at the rim, making threes. You're seeing the 5-star prospect out of high school, right? And why everyone wanted this kid when he was in middle school in Urbana, but he has really stepped up. And there was an anecdote, kudos to Brad Sturdy for noticing this, that when Fran got teed up, and I can't wait to talk about that with you, and gave Illinois 4 free throws in a 9-point game, kind of buried his team there. Kylan Boswell was supposed to shoot the free throws, but in the huddle, Kylan looked at KJ, knew KJ was struggling, and he said he was overthinking and said, you go shoot them, go make all of them. Because he said he needed to see the ball go through the hoop. That's leadership, man. That's a voice that I don't know if Kylan had even a month ago because he was kind of questioning himself. Boy, he's confident right now, Joey, and he's given Illinois everything it needs from a leadership and a production standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Kylan Boswell, sorry, I was going to see what Fran McCaffery had to say. Kylan Boswell's him and Tre White, Brad Underwood talked about those two when they got back from Duke as the guys who elevated and lifted this to where it needed to go and kind of got some energy back. And I think those two, you're talking about Kylan in particular, Jeremy. I'm sorry, I'm not as good as Derek Piper on this. Kylan Boswell, I mean, he hit a couple threes tonight. I just think the way he's facilitating, the way he's playing kind of at a pace that's comfortable for him. Someone mentioned the correct finishing at the rim. Not having to be, when KJ was out, he had to be that primary facilitator. And then obviously Tommy was out and Will was kind of coming along. But now I think it's just maybe more of a distribution of responsibilities in terms of on the floor. And, maybe KJ takes and facilitates this possession, or Will the next, or Tre the next, or Tommy the next. And Kylan Boswell doesn't have to, I don't want to speak for him, but maybe feel like he has to do everything on certain possessions when certain lineups are going, whichever way they are, if KJ's not out there. And I think he just looks more comfortable He looks like a guy who, as you mentioned, with a 5-star that everyone wanted to get, but he also looks like a guy who's just played a ton of basketball and who understands that runs are going to happen. You're not seeing as many shots. There were shots, frankly, in January and February that we're like, what are you doing? Why are you taking this shot in this situation? I don't feel like you've seen as much of that, Jeremy, over the last 4 games. I think that's probably a good sample size, is like the quote unquote reset after Duke, is those 4 games, and everything else just seems so easy right now for him. And whether it's cutting to the rim or maybe there was 1 3 tonight that we were like, I don't know about that.
He shot one that I didn't love, and he made it. So it's like, hey.
Yeah, but otherwise, he just looks really comfortable, and I think that's the biggest difference. Maybe that's comfort. And we should probably ask him about this in the locker room tomorrow. Is just knowing kind of your voice and your role everywhere else, and what's expected of you with that. But it just seems like things have fallen into place for him.
Same thing for Tre White. 7 of 11. I mean, his true effective field goal percentage over the last 5 or 6 games, I think, is north of 70%, which is just ridiculous. He made 2 of 3 threes tonight. All of a sudden, he's become like Jacob Grandison in that corner, right? That corner three, he is just going to make, and the cutting, the ability to finish at the rim with these dunks. And I thought defensively, there were times he struggled, but I thought Iowa made some really, really difficult shots early in that first half. And you got to tip your cap to Peyton Sanford and Josh Dix, who are really, really good players. But yeah, he's stepped up, and Will Riley just is a playmaker right now, man. Like, he's taken over. KJ is the team's best playmaker on the ball, right? Like, when he's got the ball in his hands, you feel pretty comfortable. Had 1 turnover that led to a transition 3, but 9 of 14 for him. Really attack the basket, and then just get some easy ones. He's making smart decisions. His IQ is really high right now, Joey. He doesn't turn the ball over very much. He's making good decisions. He's just kind of got a maturity, kind of that old man game in this 18-year-old's body right now.
Yeah, he feels like if Illinois can string a couple wins together than this or next week, and then it feels like there's always a freshman nationally who does big things in this tournament. It's really what we thought Io could have done his sophomore year before COVID canceled. It's like, man, it's happening for him right now. Like, he has a chance to really make a lot of noise, and he's already projected as a first-round pick. He's patient, man. Like Jake Davis said, he looks kind of goofy out there. And I'm like, I mean, you can't really, because he's just so long, and there's obviously so much more muscle over the course of his basketball playing career to add, but he makes it look okay. I mean, it looks maybe a little awkward, a little clunky here or there, but he makes a ton of shots, 9 of 14 tonight. He's not living and dying off 3-pointers. I think that's something we saw early on when he was trying to figure it out. It unlocked with Ivisic at Michigan State when he was just cutting and getting easy looks at the rim. And now those threes they're a little more open, or he's a little more comfortable, but just to get to the rim and be as big and tall and long as he is, that's unlocking a lot of easy free points for him.
And it's amazing how well this team shoots from 3 when it's in attack mode. When it is get the ball to the rim, get it to the paint, then kick it out. 12 of 26 from 3. They are now, Joey, 11-0 when they make 11 plus threes. And it's the quality of threes they're getting, the confidence with which they're shooting it with, that has certainly been the difference. All right, Merez Johnson Jr. plays 12 minutes in this game. I expected about 10 to 15. It's kind of a weird matchup. Iowa's not the best matchup for Merez, but obviously Merez is a matchup issue for Iowa. 4 points, had 4 points on his first 3 offensive possessions, got the putback, then another layup on a post feed, but 8 rebounds in 12 minutes. That's the most Merez Johnson Jr. thing. He said he wasn't that talkative, didn't talk much to us afterwards about the process and everything. He's not the biggest talker in the world, but he said he just needed protection on it. He said he fractured his wrist back in middle school, so he kind of had some experience with this. He thought he could come back and looked like old school Merez Johnson, Joey, and that's going to be really important going into tomorrow's matchup against Maryland.
Yeah, I asked him what he did to get ready for this, and it was red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, vitamin D pills, altered G machine to stay in some semblance of shape. That he slept a lot, but this was kind of a target for them to get him back for the Big Ten tournament. He said getting that news obviously was relieving, but this felt like his test run, Jeremy, the right word. The test run for Maryland and that front court. I was backwards. I feel so stupid looking back in the locker room. Ivisic was out that first game against Maryland. Merez Johnson played. I had it backwards. It just feels like it's kind of a jumbled mess. You don't know who was available.
But Perez was in foul trouble, right? So
right,
it was
yeah.
Ben
like,
and Tre.
And poor Jake Davis out there on Derek Queen. What a nightmare for that kid. But this felt like get some minutes, feel basketball again, run the court, and we will see you tomorrow with Julian Reese and Derek Queen, and we'll see how that goes. But for him, it had to just feel good to get out there. He said he knew when he fell against Michigan State it was broken. Like, I just taped it up and went back into it, which is, he's tough as nails, right? And it's a big boy move. And Brad Underwood thought it was notable because I told you, I said, what's his minutes? What are his minutes really? Because Ben Hummerkaus came in for Ivisic, and then I think he got to like 7 minutes into the first half. We hadn't seen Mraz Johnson. Then he comes in and, as you mentioned, had that impact, and just felt like get him playing basketball again and see where that takes them tomorrow and perhaps beyond.
I think Brad, he said, run, rebound, and play defense. Like, keep it simple. Like that's all you have to do. And that's why I didn't think there was going to be as big of an adjustment for him because he's such a low usage player. It's just, he's such a simple player, what his role is. And I thought he simulated great tonight. So you're going to need him tomorrow against Maryland. That is for sure. So that was really, really encouraging to see. Before we get to the Maryland matchup, Joey, if people want to send their super chats, we're going to be quicker tonight. We got some work to do, and then would like to hit up an Indianapolis establishment before we were done. But Fran McCaffery, what a fitting way for Fran McCaffery to go out. His team goes nuclear offensively, hits 55% of their shots, hits 11 threes, fast break. They're going fast break even on made shots. They don't really need to defend better, but that's what Iowa does. But then they give up 106 points and lose by 12, despite that offensive effort. And most importantly, Fran McCaffery, potentially in his last game at Iowa, I think it will be, gets ejected. With 2 technical fouls, I thought was really stupid of him because his team was only down 9. They were going crazy offensively, and you give Illinois 4 points. Just kind of dug his team into a hole. And I don't know what he was screaming about after that Tre White got fouled because it looked like he certainly got hacked. So, but we went Frank on 1 pretty quickly there. And if that's it for Fran McCaffery, what a perfect way to go out.
Yeah, just to be clear, when I completely whiffed on your question earlier, I was reading the quotes, and someone said, Franz, there's a lot of speculation about your future. Frankly, it's unavoidable. I just want to ask, do you expect to be the coach of Iowa next year and beyond? He said, I do. That's been his stance, Jeremy, for some time. We will see how that plays out. There's a lot of smoke in Iowa City about what's next for Fran McCaffery. But yes, very, very fitting of him. He said he may have pointed out the foul discrepancy in that moment. That was not as Fran as we've seen Fran get, frankly, to get tossed for that. So there must have been a magic word.
It went from FranCon 5 to FranCon 1 pretty quickly. Like that accelerated really quickly. I do think the magic phrase, a 2-word phrase, was said to a referee, was what I was told.
Something must have been in that
something
conversation.
You was said that I was heard.
Miss you.
Yeah.
That was very McCaffery-like, right? If that was it, what a fitting way. And on a serious note, someone asked him, and it's something that I maybe kind of thought about, but not entirely. I know you and I have a ton of respect for Peyton Sandfort and what he does. He is a heck of a good basketball player. It stinks that Fran was in the locker room when Peyton came off the floor. Like, that just stinks. That's a moment between a player and a coach. You don't have to, if you listen to this, you don't have to like Fran or like Peyton. That's just a moment, right? It would have been the same if Brad got tossed for Trent Frazier's. Like, you don't want that. Like, you just want them to have that moment.
Yeah, and that's Fran's fault. He wasn't thinking about that.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Right? He wasn't thinking about that in the moment, but that stinks. That sucks. And he let the emotions get the best of him in that moment. But, Fran has had a hell of a tenure. I know they haven't gotten to the second weekend of the tournament. I know they haven't won a Big Ten championship, but they had a really good run of basketball from about, 2015 to 2023, where that was one of the better teams in the Big Ten. He was one of the better evaluators and developers of talent. I mean, Luka Garza, no one thought was going to be the National Player of the Year. Keegan Murray, no one thought was going to be that. Chris Murray, nobody thought was going to be that. All the shooters they've had, Joe Wieskamp, now Peyton Sandfort. He's done a really good job. It's just got stale, right? Like it just got stale. Maybe he stayed there a little bit too long, and it's definitely been on the downfall. But Illinois-Iowa rivalry was awesome. And Illinois won 9 of the last 10 there, but the first 5 of that was as intense as you'll ever see. So I always remember Fran as kind of a good foil in the Big Ten. And I thought he obviously won a lot of Big Ten games, just didn't have those peak moments of titles besides the conference tournament title in 2022. And when everyone thought Iowa was going to be great that year, they lose right away in the first weekend. But I would expect him to be gone. There's a lot of smoke that I will move on, and that'd be a big move for Beth Getz, the AD there, who just took over for Gary Barta. It'd be one of her first huge moves. They got to get resources into that program, but it sounds like Darren DeVries from West Virginia could be the guy. So you wonder if some former Illini follow him. And obviously Ben McCollum's a really good candidate. Could be a candidate for Indiana as well. But it did feel like that was the end for Fran. And boy, what a way to say goodbye.
What it was very, very fitting. It was very on brand for what we have observed of him over his tenure. But man, before we move on, like those matchups when the Io Luka, the Kofi Luka, just having two National Player of the Years playing each other twice a year, like that.
Fran McCaffery.
Like, I know that's kind of been phased out, and now with Purdue, maybe you put in that conversation Indiana, however you want to. I mean, we can go with Michigan State. We can go down a whole conversation and a list with it. That was so fun in that moment, and it really it made Illinois feel back to have like a toe-to-toe heated, one of the top two teams in the Big Ten just hate the heck out of each other. Iowa played into it. It was fun.
What was great about the rivalry is like they both agreed they were the rival. Right, like you're just mentioning some teams. I don't think Michigan State or Indiana look at Illinois.
No, they both. Iowa said we don't like them.
Yeah. Purdue, like Illinois is not their top rival, so that's where it's like that's why that one felt great because it was toe to toe. It was like a mutual hatred, but a mutual respect, a begrudging respect. Like I don't know who that is at the moment. Maybe Missouri. I don't think it's Wisconsin. I think Michigan State could be if this thing continued because, boy, that was a fun one. But yeah, that was the best rivalry I've covered. That and Michigan were pretty good.
Yeah, that was. And credit to Frank, his teams were good, and he had good players, and that made just the perfect time. The timing was just as fun as anything else. It was a talent just to feel like Illinois basketball was back, and someone hated them because they were trying to win the Big Ten over them. It's a good time.
By the way, USC up 3 on Purdue early in the first half of that one. Oregon wins earlier today to move on. Wisconsin takes care of Northwestern. Peyton Sanford, though, yeah, kudos to him. What a career for him. I know he battled through injuries, 2 shoulder separations, I think he said to people today. So, man, he's a warrior, and he was going off today trying to save his team.
Hey, along those lines, like the theory for Illinois, when we go into those games against Iowa, it's like don't let Sanford and Dix beat you. Don't let them get hot. They have 51. Like credit to the Illinois offense for surviving that because that's a recipe. When they do that, that's a recipe for teams to lose in a hurry.
And what did Tre tell you about that? Tre White.
Oh, he said, yeah, at some point, some of those shots were tough, right? Like they were just difficult shots. And Tre said, kind of knew that things were going to level back out. He said, this team now is much better equipped to handle teams going on those runs and know, like, I don't want to, misquote him, but paraphrase, like, hey, they're going to punch, so we've got to step even harder. And we've got to go. And that comes from him. Tre White's been on some bad basketball teams and basketball teams that didn't have those postseason runs. He knows what this feels like, right? He knows what it feels like to go home before you see the weekend in a conference tournament. You don't want to be there. Kylan Boswell has played in a lot of big basketball games. Like I think those two in particular, it's probably a story we ought to try to tell this postseason run, Jeremy, is what the value of their voices has been for this turnaround post New York, because it's been impressive. And I think those two have a huge hand in it.
That'll be in my notebook tomorrow morning, actually. So we'll have that to look forward to. All right, sets up the matchup I want to see. I know you didn't want to get them the second game of this tournament, Joey. You probably want to avoid them as long as you can. But I'm really eager to see how Illinois looks with another chance at Maryland, a team that has won, I believe, 7 of their last 8. I think is as hot as any Big Ten team, along with Michigan State and UCLA, and just such a matchup issue, right? With Derek Queen and Julian Reese, the 2 bigs who are big and physical, and just pass it really well. And then guards are tough as hell. Miguel is playing great. Jacoby Gillespie's one of the best guards in the Big Ten. I almost put Rodney Rice on my all Big Ten third team. If it weren't an 18-team league, I probably would have. I think they got the best starting five in the Big Ten. They're tough. They're physical. They took Illinois to the woodshed, but it's a different Illinois team, right? 2 months later, basically. Tomislav Ivisic didn't play in that game. Russ Johnson Jr. got in foul trouble, and Kylan Boswell and Tre White weren't the same at that point, didn't feel like. So different Illinois team. So this is a really good measuring stick for them. And really, I think Illinois solidified. They probably have a great chance at a 6 seed right now, Joey. Maybe some would have them as a 7. You beat Maryland, you're definitely a top 6 seed. Like, and you could be going for a 5 seed. So what a great opportunity to improve your resume and another chance to show to the committee you're a different team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're as good, as well equipped now to handle that as you have been at any point. I wouldn't have probably said that if you flipped this game with even the Michigan game, right? As you were still trying to work everything back into the mix. Obviously, no Morez Johnson in that window, but this is as full as we've seen this Illinois team. This is the team that's really feeling itself beyond, like, there's the obvious, right? There's the obvious that Tomislav Ivisic and Morez Johnson are back. Will they both start? I don't know. I don't know that you have to really get – maybe you do. I mean, to try to combat that as best you can, maybe you do try to go.
Do you change what's working so well, though?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know. It's just the value of having Ivisic able to pull one of those two bigs out of there good enough and hope you can survive it. It doesn't matter. Those two are going to play together. It doesn't necessarily matter if they do or don't start, but I'm fascinated by that because it's a statement. You can really have a chance to, again, have a 1 point here and 1 point here and show how different you are in those two moments. But Maryland's good, man. Like, Maryland, Derek Queen is really stinking good. I don't know that Illinois, I'll go have to see him again after tomorrow. But
did you see that today? Jonathan Goni, ESPN, had the all freshman team from the Big Ten all in the top 12. 5 Big Ten freshmen in the top 12 of his mock draft. And Derek Queen, number 10 there. So, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun matchup. Now, if you're like Illinois, if you're an Illinois fan, maybe you would have preferred this to be a Saturday or a Sunday type of deal and let you get another one going into this. But
it feels like a semifinal. These feel like 2 of the 4 best teams in the Big Ten, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, on our group chat, Trotter said it feels like the winner of this game might win this whole Big Ten tournament. And I think you can make a case for that. Obviously, Michigan State is still doing some really good things on the basketball court. This is exciting. You got to beat good teams if you want to win this thing and go. And I just feel like, again, they're healthy, but there's just a clicking about Illinois right now that was early. Go back and look at that, Jeremy. That Maryland game was really early in this bizarro month of February, end of January. They'd missed KJ for 2 games. You get him back against Indiana. Ivisic is half functioning at Michigan State in the following game, and then it just starts to totally unravel for them. And Ivisic is out, and Trey and Will, and everyone's kind of in and out of it for a little bit. And now you've got some games with most of these guys outside of Morez having some continuity under their belt. I thought your question to Brad yesterday was really, really good in the sense of you don't have to go crazy bringing Morez back into this. Rebound, defend, run, not a high usage guy. Seems like a pretty easy transition to get him minutes again.
Yeah, and if you win this one against Maryland, I mean, we'll see what happens with Purdue here, but Michigan's the 3 seed. If USC beats Purdue, like, you're setting yourself up for potential Sunday, right? Like, potential good matchup there. So I wanted to mention this. Brad Evans is my go-to bracket expert, thegamingjuice.com. He has Illinois as the number 1 6 seed right now. So I think they're locked in to that 6 seed because tomorrow doesn't hurt you. Might drop you, 1 spot in the 6 seed line. But also Purdue is a 5 seed right now. And if they lose to USC, that might drop them and you can rise up. So a lot of, just like last year, Joey, where they went from like 5 seed to 3 seed, feels like Illinois has got some helium this weekend in Indianapolis if they can, get by Maryland and then have a couple chances for more wins.
Yeah, and if you're real quiet, you can hear Brad Evans screaming it now in his home. Kidding, I like Brad. He's got a lot of energy. Yeah, this is a chance. I mean, to climb up. They're off that 8-9, which think about 3 weeks ago, that was just like, oh my God, oh goodness. You see Auburn in the second round would what a disaster. And now there's a chance to gas up a little bit. And someone asked if they're peaking at the right time.
I was just about to put that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. I don't think, I mean, someone can really probably get into the weeds on it and say, would you rather, is this too early? Probably not. I don't think it's too early.
This is exactly where you want to peak.
Yeah.
Like Michigan maybe peaked too early. Wisconsin maybe peaked a little bit too early. Illinois is peaking at the right time, but Brad Underwood would come in here and just bust the door down and say, we're healthy at the right time. We are full at the right time. But also they have made the schematic changes. They've made the little changes they needed to, and being healthy helps that. But also you've had Kylan, Tre step up at the right time. And just as KJ feels like that heavy load from the previous couple months is wearing him down. Here comes Will Riley. You got another one. And that's the great thing. It's like KJ had to be great earlier in the season. Even now, as he goes through some struggles, game to game, half to half, minute to minute, you have all the other pieces. And that's what this team was built for.
Yeah, absolutely. They were built for this and for this month, right? And that we'll see. That's kind of the ultimate test at St. Dom ever the beacon of positivity comes in. Like they were like they set, and I'm giving them a little bit of a hard time, but they did set these expectations big for this month. They did, like, by their own admission, they've always said we feel like we're one of the best teams, and Brad Underwood built this roster for this, knowing these freshmen were going to take lumps. You didn't expect KJ's wrist or Will getting sick or Tommy getting sick, but you knew it was going to be a process. So now it's kind of showtime. Right? Show what that metal you've kind of built since being hurt, that those lumps you took early. Now it's your time to really put that on display. I think they've got some confidence to that. I also think they've got a little bit of told you so energy in these last 4 games.
Tre White has become one of the best, our go-to guys, right? He's awesome with us. And one of the things he said to me in the post-game locker room was, shit, it's winning time. We all got that. And it happened as those losses started to accrue. It's like, shit, we got to go. Like we're too good for this. And I think that's really, it really woke up Kylan to what he has to do and what his role is on this team. But you've also seen Tre. It's like, I came here to win. What's it going to take for me to win? And it's just, this team's together, man. Like even through all those ups and downs, you can see they didn't feel like they were giving up. They played 3 teams, felt like they gave up in the second half against Duke, but it woke them up. So maybe in the end, that becomes the best thing for this team.
Yeah. Hey, before we get out of here, can I one quick shout out? I feel like we overlooked it a little bit. I thought Ben Hammerkaus played his butt off tonight. His stat line is not impressive. 5 points, 1 of 5 shooting, 1 of 3 on 3-pointers, a couple points at the line, some 3 rebounds. I just thought he was an effort guy. The guy tipping a couple of those rebound opportunities back to teammates. I thought he defended well. That's kind of what you wanted out of that guy, and injuries and different things that and maybe elevated him to a bigger role than maybe he was ready for, or maybe that fit him. But just that hustle guy, you want a couple more threes, right? That's what this dude does. But I thought he played just with a ton of energy and a ton of effort tonight, and that noted. I thought that was noticeable.
All right, last one I want to do. Play engineer. Just don't want them to use up their mojo in the Big Ten tournament and then flame out in the big dance. I think the more games this team can win in a row, the better. Like just the confidence. Like this team is finally confident. Like do that, all that sickness and stuff. All I just wanted to see was confidence and fire, and we're seeing that from this team right now. And there's some defensive things I didn't like tonight, especially in that transition or even after a make, but you could tell they were kind of controlling that game for most of it. Just needed Iowa to miss a few of those tough shots. So I'm not going to be worried if this team makes a run to Sunday. Joey.
No, probably not. And again, I really do. Like I asked Kylan, I said, does it feel like you guys have a little bit of, we told you we're good. We were sick and everyone freaked out. And the results were worthy of some real legitimate conversations about what was happening on the basketball court. But is there a little told you so energy? He said, yeah. I mean, you don't have to live on social media to know what's being said about you collectively, and not trying to scold anyone for being disappointed in their basketball team because the results were disappointing. Yep. Frankly, they were, even with all of the necessary caveats. But I think they're kind of playing with a little bit of like, you guys didn't know, but we did. So here you go. Now it's on display, and it's a big opportunity for that to build tomorrow.
All right. Hopefully Derek Piper gets better. We'd love to see him out here in Indianapolis. Maybe Illinois makes a run to where we get to see him, but get better, DP. Thank you to the more than 400 people who signed or logged into our YouTube channel here and took part in this post game. We appreciate you guys and all your support. We'll be here as long as Illinois is here, and then we'll follow them in the NCAA tournament as well. So hit that like button on the way out of the YouTube channel. Subscribe to us if you don't. Hit the notifications bell for whenever we start these videos. We have plenty of pro day coverage. We'll have more of that. We'll have more from this game in the locker room tonight. So go check out IIliniInquirer.com as well. But for Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.